Happy Wednesday, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started since it is 10 o'clock. My name is Laura Hamilton. I am the HR Area Administrator for WSU Spokane Health Sciences. And what we're going to talk about today is creating meaningful meetings. I think we have all probably at one time or another been in meetings that have not been the most effective. And so today we'll talk about what processes we can engage in as individual contributors to help make sure that the meetings that we're engaged in are a little bit more meaningful. So as a part of that process, we have to look at what are some real life examples of some meetings that maybe didn't go so well, or some awful meetings that we've been in. Sometimes we'll go into meetings where the leader has a vague purpose, where it really isn't clearly understood by all of the participants of the meeting what the hope for outcome of the meeting is. Participants must say nothing about the meeting's vague purpose or lack of purpose. The meeting leader must be sure there's enough irrelevant material so that each person will be bored senseless for a significant amount of time. Of course, these are meant to be comical, but are sometimes things that do happen in meetings that we're in. The participants must not mention that some of the meeting is a waste of their time. Participants must try to appear interested in continuing the meeting by bringing up pet subjects and making sure that their special issues that are not on the agenda get covered. I believe some of these you guys may have experienced before. When a leader or a participant notices this happening, he or she must say nothing. No matter how disgusted everyone is, everyone must agree to hold their critical comments until they leave the meeting, then pass on their crucial comments to people who can do nothing about the issues. And then when assignments or decisions are made, no one must record them or bring them up again. So, of course, again, this is meant to be a comical overview of sometimes what will happen in meetings, but actually sometimes do occur. There are portions of these that I've seen happen in meetings that I'm a part of. So the major reason for having a meeting is for us to work together and to look at improving how the group is working together, to focus on whether your group's achieving your group's goals, reducing barriers, improving processes, and satisfying the needs of the people who affect our department's success. So those are going to be typical reasons for having a meeting. But sometimes those meetings can go a bit off topic or turn into a platform for pet subject areas of different attendees of the meeting instead of really getting to the outcome we're hoping for. And as individual contributors to meetings, we do have ways that we can help to ensure that the meeting is more successful. So one of the ways of doing that is to check out our own feelings. If we're starting to feel frustrated by a meeting, or we're feeling a bit anxious about how the process is going, we need to do a little bit of a gut check. We need to notice, does it seem to be off track? Are there things about the purpose of the meeting that we're not really focusing on? Is this a useful meeting? Are we frustrated? Are we bored? Are we confused? What is it that's leading us to feel that this meeting is not helpful to the processes moving forward as a department? Let the feelings really guide you as you seek to determine why the meeting's off target. As you working on checking out your own feelings, imagine that you're finding yourself in a meeting that seems to be a poor use of time. Is there a follow-up on assignments from the last meeting? Is there an agenda? Are the participants there? Sometimes we feel frustrated because not all of the people who need to be a part of the conversation are there yet. So you have to go back and readdress all of the topics when they arrive. So really getting to the core of, are there frustrations? Why are those frustrations there? That way, as you're addressing it with the team, you're addressing the right issue. Holding each other accountable. If you've done your gut check, so this is step 2, you've done your gut check, you're checking out your own feelings and determined, hey, the meeting's off track. Is there a safe way that you can bring that concern up in front of the group? Sometimes it's as simple as saying, hey, we seem to be getting off topic with the intention of this meeting today, or we slated 10 minutes for this topic area, it's taken 15. Is this something we need to table, or is this topic important enough that we do need to continue on with it? And we'll get a little bit into the structure that I really prefer for an agenda for a meeting that can help with that team accountability piece. And then checking in with the group. Invite others as you're sharing your experience with different areas of the meeting to either agree or disagree with your observations. It may be something that you're experiencing that others who are participants in the meeting aren't experiencing. They might find that the information that's being shared is critical for the work that they do. And so you should be able to decide as a group what those next steps should be for the meeting. And are there ways to address concerns before returning to the agenda? So if there are areas where there seem to be a disconnect, can those be addressed really quickly? Maybe even put on an agenda for a future meeting. That way the purpose and intention of this meeting is being met. So again, this is the structure that I really like to see as a part of an agenda. One of the things that I really appreciate as teams are working together is if they have put together ground rules of how they're going to interact with each other as a team, and some of those ouch moments that they're having as a team, that those ground rules are reflected on the agenda to ensure that everybody has that as a visual point to point back to if you start to get off topic. So then talk about the things gone right, things gone wrong as a team. It is important with certain meetings as you're coming together, or committees as you're coming together, that you have an opportunity to celebrate the successes. Things that are going really well that you might not otherwise have an opportunity to tout a little bit. But then really to think about what are the barriers, what are the things that aren't going as well as you would like that need to become an agenda item either for this meeting because it's critical or for a future meeting. Reviewing the who does what by when on any action items that are due. So making sure that that is being tracked through the process of different meetings that are being held so that you have an accountability piece and you have an opportunity to check back in and make sure that if there are due dates that have come, that the individual who's responsible for that item has an opportunity to follow up on it. Then there's the agenda and the purpose check. There are different agenda items. There might be different subject areas. It might be an agenda item that's to inform. Sometimes we need to receive updates on policy guidance and processes from leadership of the department or leadership for a committee. And so it might be just something that is informational that really is not up for a discussion or a decision, which would be the other type of agenda items. Is this something that needs to be discussed and we need an outcome? Or is there really a brainstorming and a conversation that needs to be happening to decide how we want to move forward on a process? So really reviewing what's on the agenda before you dive into the agenda to make sure there's not something missing. A lot of times that agenda and purpose check is done ahead of time. So often you'll see an agenda go out to the members of a department or a committee before the meeting to just say, hey, just wanted to check in, make sure there's not anything else that needs to go on the agenda. If you do have a team that tends to have topic areas that take a little bit more time than the meeting allows for, having in parentheses next to each of those agenda items how much time is allotted for each topic could be really helpful as well, again, to keep everybody on track and accountable for what needs to be accomplished during the meeting. Before you leave any of the agenda items, and close the meeting, really thinking through with whom do we need to communicate. There may be individuals who don't need to be involved in the discussion process or the decision process of a new policy or of work that your department is doing, but it may impact them in their daily workflow. And so there may be an action item that involves communicating with others on what decision's been made and really seeking any sort of input from them on if it's going to have any unintended impacts on the work that they do. And then of course we have the who does what by when. So as you are looking at each of the agenda items, if there are follow-up, making sure that you're assigning who the responsible party is, when it's expected that they'll have some follow-up, and then what they're expected to do. That way that can be followed up on at the next meeting. So again, it's that accountability piece and can really help to keep the meeting on track and getting the team to the outcomes that you're hoping for. So from an opposite perspective as earlier, the characteristics of a meaningful meeting is the purpose of the meeting is clear. The why of the meeting is clear. The agenda has a manageable number of topics, the what. So if we have so many topics on the agenda that we're never getting to some of those non-critical items that still have impact to the work that we're doing, do we need to have a longer meeting so that we can address all the topic areas and they don't continue to float through to the next agenda? I actually worked with a team once that we had so many fires that we needed to put out, so many items that were really critical to the work of the organization, that some of those items that were how do we engage in process improvement did seem to float over from meeting to meeting to meeting. And so we did get to a point that we said, you know what, we just need to have a half-a-day session. We really need to get through some of these non-critical items that's going to improve the experience of our stakeholders. So sometimes it is necessary as a team to do that, to assess, do we need to set aside some additional time to get through those non-critical items so that they don't continue to sit there without the necessary attention. Ground rules and group processes are followed. So have you set team ground rules for communications of areas that you have maybe some ouch moments or some ability to improve how you're engaging with each other, and are they being followed? Have they been modified and updated to address any continued areas of concern? The meeting place is not distracting, the where. As I was leading a team of clinical managers earlier in my career, we had a beautiful opportunity to have meetings in this space at a country club because of a membership that one of the leaders had. The downside of that is the entire downstairs meeting space was just windows. And so it was not unusual for individuals to get quite distracted, as you would literally see swans floating by in this little pond that they had behind the space. And we found that as amazing as it was to have this beautiful space to meet, it was distracting enough that we needed to find somewhere that was more appropriate so that we could really get the work done. Because we weren't getting through topics as timely as we needed, or people would get distracted quite easily and we'd have to repeat pieces of the meeting because people couldn't quite pay attention. So is the time being used efficiently? So the when, have we given enough time for the topic areas? Have we set some time limits so that we're able to efficiently move through the different topics? Sometimes just setting those time limits allows people to recognize when it's appropriate time to have a more in-depth conversation, or when this is an area that, hey, we've really moved to a successful outcome for this one, and we really don't need to get to the beating the dead horse that sometimes will happen with topics. And are the right people there and participating fully, the who? Sometimes on topic areas, the very agenda item is, who do we need to include in this conversation to make sure we do get to a successful conclusion? And so do we have all of those right people at the meeting, or do we need to invite others into the space to make sure that we're making the right decisions and not negatively impacting others? So hopefully you can see through some of these recommendations, especially, getting to our own heart of where we're at with the meeting and helping to get topics back onto track. holding everybody accountable for those processes and checking in with others can help us to have more successful meetings. So hopefully you'll be able to use some of these tools as you have meetings over the next week. Certainly some interesting dynamics as we're having a lot of our meetings over Zoom, but it becomes even more critically important that we're pointing back to some of these characteristics of having that meaningful meeting so that we can move through those spaces efficiently. Thanks, you guys. Please don't forget to, if you have the Smart Help, that you're using that to get some of your points and logging your attendance today. And the next session is going to be creating new habits. And Dawn Reed will be doing that session tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday. Thanks.